Hello, everybody. I'm gonna be honest. School sucks 80% of the time. It's hard, it's not fun. We generally have to do a lot of stuff that we don't even know how is going to lead us to the career we want. And so I'm here to break it down and teach university and college students not only how to survive, but to thrive. Okay, so survival is obviously like the bare minimum, just scraping by, getting through. It's like that 50%, it's like D level. Thriving is when you are in control of your own outcomes, when you are doing the most, and when you are seeing the results that you want. A thriving grade would be something like a high B, an A, anything that you wish to achieve would be thriving. I've got about 5 tips for each, and the great news about both the survival tips and the thriving tips is that you can use all of these tips whether you're doing school online or in person. So without further ado, let's just get into how to hack college. I'm gonna start with survival because if you're not even surviving school, you won't be able to thrive. You have to get through it to actually get to the good part. The first thing, the most important thing when pursuing school is to understand your commitment. What I mean by this is you have to be aware of how many classes you are taking. For someone like me, I'm doing 3 classes and I consider school to be a part-time commitment. This is because I'm pursuing things like social media and I also have other extracurriculars that take a lot of my time. If you're like me and you have a lot of extracurriculars, then I would recommend doing less school so you can balance your time out more efficiently. If school is one of your top priorities and maybe you're doing more classes, maybe you're doing 4 or 5, maybe even 6, then you need to start putting school at the top of your list. You need to prioritize more school-based tasks. You also need to think about how much time you're dedicating to school versus the rest of your life. One thing I've noticed in university is that you don't have to commit to a part-time schedule or a full-time schedule the entire time. That's the awesome thing about having school split into semesters. I think the most important part when it comes to like realizing what kind of commitment you currently have with school is to think about your priorities. I was reading the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and one thing that really stuck out to me was how he said, put first things first. And that made me realize, like, I see myself having a career in social media. I don't see myself having a career in school as of now. So to me, that indicates that I should be putting first things first, putting social media first. That's something to think about. Kind of segueing into the next tip, you need to be organized. Whether you have a lot of extra commitments or not, you need to be organized in school. And if you don't keep track of your assignments, it's going to be very easy for you to miss handing one in or hand one in late. If you hand an assignment late, sometimes you can lose up to 10% a day. So what I do, and you can figure out whatever way is best to keep track of your assignments, I keep a running to-do list of everything I need to do for the week. So basically I take a sticky note, I stick it on my laptop, and as I go through assignments and things I want to study, things I want to go over, I keep a running list of things I need to do. I also have a secondary organizer, which I use notes on my phone for this, and I have all my roles laid out and I have all the tasks I need to complete each week in each role. That's another thing. You have to look at your roles and you have to look at where you are spending your time and being organized within each role. Third survival tip is so important and people always skip over this, but you need to have some sort of designated way to unwind. The reason I say this is because school is stressful. There are tons of opportunities for high anxiety, panic attacks, and burnout. Let's be honest, school is not all it's cracked up to be. It is hard, especially when you are in a competitive program or university or college. It is not always easy, and you need to kind of know your limits. And when you are maxing out, you need to have something right away that you can fall into that makes you feel way better, basically. Some of those kinds of things for me is like my bullet journal. I bring my bullet journal with me to school. So if I'm majorly stressing out, I'll stop studying and I'll take out my bullet journal and I'll start doodling or doing whatever I want to do. Another thing, physical thing, working out is great, taking a bath. I think the best way is to pick something a little bit more accessible. Like for me, having my bullet journal with me means that no matter where I am, because you can be studying in multiple places, having that bullet journal with me allows me to escape right then and there in that moment. I don't have to drive home to take a bath. I don't have to drive to the gym to go to the gym. I can literally just escape right there just by pulling my bullet journal out of my bag. Okay, so the fourth survival tip is, and you can do this whether it is online or in person, you should know at least one person in every single one of your classes. You do not have to be best friends with them. You don't need to text them every day. But if you are sick, especially now with COVID, if you're sick and need to miss school, you automatically have someone you can contact and be like, look, what did I miss? Not only that, but if you have questions and you know that there's a good chance your professor may not have time to answer them or you can't make office hours, you have another person to check with. And to be honest, in university, I'm not sure if colleges are the same, but at UBC, they really push collaboration. And so I think just getting used to having these more professional relationships where you can reach out to people and be like, hey, I need help, or like, did you understand this? Just going over things, it gives you a new perspective and it will really help you in the future because you're gonna have to get used to collaborating with people and working together, and it's gonna be so much easier when those opportunities arrive. This is the last survival tip, one that is completely looked over all the time, and this is getting actual sleep. And we've all been there where we've pulled all-nighters studying, or we've stayed up till 1, 2 o'clock just because we need to study, waking up at 5 or 6 to make that morning class. And honestly, I think it took me, I don't think I learned this until I was in second year, and getting actual sleep is much more important than studying late at night. You think you're gonna retain those late night hours of studying, but you are not. Everything you study, you are going to forget because you are so depleted. Especially if you have exams in the morning, you are so much better off calling it a night and maybe even waking up early and studying, or studying on the way to class. Like, that is just the reality of the situation, and there are going to be times where you don't have enough time to study absolutely everything, but that is why you prioritize. This is why we are organized, we prioritize. Getting that actual sleep will help you perform better and make better judgment decisions on your exams because you are rested and you're able to use all of your brain. Okay, now we're moving into the thriving tips, and these are some of my personal favorites because these are tips that have actually helped me thrive and helped me get those high A's, high B's, and those grades I want. So they are personal, but they're quite general as well because anybody can use these. It doesn't matter if you're me, a girl studying science, it doesn't matter. These tips will work for anybody. This is something that took me a long time to figure out, way longer than I'd like to admit. It took me all of first year to try to figure this out, and I didn't even implement it until second year. So figuring out how to best take notes for you. What I mean by this is, if you do take notes, because some people don't need to take notes, but for me, I always take notes, making the decision between handwritten notes and typed notes. Now, in first year, it kind of depended on the class for me. Like math, I would handwrite everything. Psych, I typed. And so that's something too to keep in mind. For different classes, you may like different types of note taking. But for me, in general, I learned this in year 2 when school transitioned online, that I much preferred taking notes online. I was able to copy and paste stuff, highlight, make stars, notes, and just, it was way easier for me because I felt like I could put everything I needed all in the same place. I juggled around between a lot of different notes platforms. I think I tried GoodNotes. I didn't like it. I tried Notion. I could not figure it out for the life of me. And so what I ended up sticking with was OneNote. It can be a little bit frustrating to use at times, but it's worked for me. I really like that I can have folders and pages and basically have like a notebook for every class, and then have the different chapters laid out, and then within the chapters I can have my notes, slides, practice questions, and then like practice tests, like everything I need all in one place. So that has been my favorite method, typing written notes, and then I use OneNote. This tip piggybacks this, how do you say that? This tip piggybacks off of the last one, and basically it is reviewing your notes right after class. Now, I know this isn't always possible, especially if you have back-to-backs, which genuinely are my least favorite. I hate having back-to-backs, but taking notes right after your class just reinforces the information you just learned so much deeper. And if you're like me, like it is very challenging for me to pay attention in all of class. Like I generally will be like a zombie. I will be completely zoned out, typing out my notes. And so for me, reviewing notes right after class, it's just like, okay, yeah, this is that. And then when I go to do homework, assignments, projects, whatever, I have a way better understanding of my learning. Like if you are in a situation where you do have back-to-back classes or you need to leave for home right away because of traffic and whatnot, I genuinely recommend like you review your notes as soon as possible, because if you do leave it for later, you won't even remember what you wanted to remember. Active recall. So just try to do it right away as soon as you can, because it just further cements those ideas into your brain. This one is similar to one of the survival tips, but it's just taking it to that next level where you can thrive. And this is studying with friends or people from your school. Again, like I said, most universities really push collaboration, but I have found several times, I remember me and my friends for chem exams, we would all show up, we'd lay out all our stuff, and we would go over things together. And every single time we did that, I performed best on my chem exams. I performed better on my chem exams than I was expecting, because being with other people and trying to understand the material, it just teaches you in a different way. You get to see other people's perspectives of the learning, and they may explain things to you in a way that helps you understand it better, especially if you guys have different professors. Some people have gone to office hours, others haven't. It is so helpful. And honestly, me and my friends would do this before our chem midterms all the time. We would all meet up, everyone brought everything, we would go over the practice midterms together, and I would go into those exams feeling way more confident, so many more positive emotions than like stress and anxiety, because I was with people I liked, we were all kind of in the same boat, and it's just so much more helpful, like mentally, and you generally do better when you study with others. Another tip for thriving is testing yourself. I guess there's kind of like a couple different ways to study, and I think you should try lots of them, but testing yourself or even having someone else test you, just being tested in general, is amazing. I think that alone is probably the best tip I have, because I've been doing this since high school, and like I had very high grades in high school, and it's starting to show now in university as well. And I test myself in every single subject. The only one that I've had a bit of trouble doing this with is math, just because like the nature of how math is in general is it's always testing yourself basically, because you have to practice. So for like things like bio, like different mechanisms, I will like from top to bottom try to like say them out loud and like test myself in those situations. I use Quizlet for this because it's just the best way, and I will go through all of the learning outcomes in a certain chapter of a class, and I will write down every single learning outcome, and where there is some areas that aren't covered, I will do those as well. I'll write out my answer on like the other side of the Quizlet flashcard, but it's not like about getting things word for word. It's about being able to thoroughly explain processes or what definitions mean in terms of like bio or psych, and this has helped me so much, like testing myself, because once you miss something, you remember, okay, like I missed that, like what is that? And it helps you learn it even better, and you know where you need to study. Testing yourself multiple times is genuinely, I think it's the best way to study. Like I've been doing this for years. I used to do spelling tests back in elementary school in like 2nd and 3rd grade, and I was testing myself then, and it's like the number one way I recommend studying, because if you can explain something, especially if it's a process, then you are going to be golden, because that means you actually understand what is happening. This is the last tip for thriving in college or university, and it is try to find the fun in studying. Now, this is pretty generic because, you know, studying is not always fun and it can be very stressful, especially when you're near an exam. But making it fun for yourself is so important, because when you feel those positive emotions, you're just more calm and you're able to carry out the tasks you need to. So some ways I like to make studying fun would be like studying with friends, and even just putting my AirPods in. I'll play music sometimes. Like I have different playlists for different moods. Like sometimes I'll listen to like the music I'm listening to right now, or I'll listen to like movie soundtracks of my favorite movies that the words don't really matter. It just calms me down like immediately. Disney movies are great for this because they have a lot of like classical music and it's just the score and not the like lyrics. I also listen to like soft piano with no words as well. That's really calming. I know some people go on YouTube and like if you have YouTube on your TV, you can set up like an ambience of like many different like things. Like I know they've got like Harry Potter ones, they've got like Pixie Hollow Fairy ones, like they've got so many different things that you can do just to give yourself like a good space. You can make yourself tea. I love going to coffee shops because what I'll do is I'll get a little drink for myself and then I'll also get like something sweet, and like that's fun for me because I'll be studying, working hard, having my coffee, and then like later, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I'll go get like a little sweet, and like that makes me happy and like I'm doing something I don't particularly love. So it carries you through it a little bit when you're struggling. So those are my tips for surviving and thriving in college. I'm really excited because when I first was actually on campus at UBC, I didn't have a YouTube channel yet. And so now I do, and I'm going back to school. So I'm going to be vlogging all the time. I'm going to be making videos like this, making videos of me actually on campus. So please stay tuned for that. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. You know, I always like to take suggestions for new videos in the comment section. So please check it out and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you guys in the next video.